Talk Radio. You're listening to the National Intel Report with your host, John Stachmiller.
We are here, and I'm here. Is Bob Chapman there? Jeez.
Hello.
Hi.
Gee, you kept on going in and out there like a jackrabbit.
I'm here, you're there. Where's there? Are you ever going to tell us?
Well, that's the other guy that I'm worried about. Is he over in Jeffreys Bay, or is he there in Scottsdale among the very wealthy?
I'm still here.
He's still here.
A voice in the wilderness.
I talked to Gerald Celente the other day. I actually had him on. I was trying to schedule him for Friday's show. Robbie took off for California. And,
oh, my gosh.
Yeah, and I tried to get Gerald, but I couldn't get him. I could only get him for a half hour on my show. But I put a bug in his ear, and I said, hey, Gerald, I said, since they're not being real friendly to you and not letting you on a whole lot on the financial shows or on television anymore, you're relegated to Russian television propaganda channel, state-owned. I said, would you ever consider doing radio? If we get enough radio stations, I need a replacement for this Rhodesian Ridgeback. And he goes, who's that? I said, Robbie Noel. He goes, where's Robbie going? I said, South Africa. He said, is he nuts? So there's your vote from Gerald Celente. You're nuts if you go to South Africa.
Yeah, well, I've been called worse.
I'm sure, but I'm trying to groom and prep him to be your replacement.
There you go.
Well, he's been working over his FNFAL because he knows he's going to need it.
Man, you've been here since when? 1980, Robbie?
Yep.
You've been here 30 years.
I got here, I can never forget when I got to America. I got here the week John Lennon was assassinated.
Really?
Yep.
And Bob, it was the only time in recorded history that when he pulled into the harbor up there in New York, the statue turned its back on him.
No, she cried.
I actually went and stood outside the Dakota with thousands of other people. It was an amazing welcome to America thing.
Well, this country, it was a different place, different time 30 years ago. It still was getting rather ragged around the edges. But, man, what you witnessed here in this country, you being here in the last 30 years, I mean, it got so bad Bob had to bail out and go hide someplace on planet Earth.
Yeah, well, you should have seen the questions they asked you at immigration. I mean, I guarantee you they don't ask you the same questions anymore.
Well, and I went through customs the other day, and they asked me a very interesting series of questions. They, what is your purpose of travel, and do you have any ties to any terrorist organization? Do you know this guy by the name of Bob Chapman? And I.
Back then, all they were worried about is if you are affiliated with any neo-Nazi group or are you a communist.
Now they don't have to worry about it. They got a communist. They got a communist in the White House.
Yeah. Now I guess that's gone by the wayside. Now they just ask you if you're a terrorist.
Well, and look at Uncle Joe, a loving guy that he was, killed millions of his own countrymen. I mean, the old adage, keep your friends close, but keep your enemies closer. So I think Obama is right where he should be.
Yeah.
Hey.
Well, all I can say is, hate to change the subject here, but it looks like Wall Street got a late wake-up call about the tensions in Korea this afternoon. I mean, I was watching gold. It was sort of lackluster under 1,200, and in the last 20 minutes or so, it has shot up $11 to $1,203.50.
1,100 and what's
$1,203.50.
1,200. Are you talking gold here?
Yeah.
I was watching it all day, and they kept trying to push it down. The markets were down. The Dow was down a couple of hundred points, and then magically it made a return. I think Dow was, down 49 points?
But it's down almost 300 points this morning.
Yeah, but what was the rallying cry here? Whoopee, we're going to go fight North Korea?
No. Fed governor, I don't know if it was Hornig, but he came out and he assured the financial world that the Federal Reserve stands ready to enact quantitative easing should the need arise.
Oh, and how's that end the Fed and let's investigate and let's audit the Fed? How's that working out?
That's not going to happen. So anyway, the world is a happy place because the Fed's going to be printing more money.
Yeah, well, the private wages, it's a record low, guys. The Bureau of Economic Analysis reports that individuals received income from all sources, wages, investment, food stamps, etc., at a $12.2 trillion annual rate in the first quarter. Private wages, a record low of 41.9% of the nation's personal income came from private wages, and salaries in the first quarter down from 44.6%. Government benefits. Hey, let's all get on the government dole. Individuals got 17.9% of their income from government programs in the first quarter, and that's up from 14.2% when the recession started. Of course, they were a little late, guys, calling the recession. We called it back in 06, and they dawdled around till October of 07. Gee, just in time before the crash.
Yeah. Does it say any comparisons that government employees now earn more than the private sector?
No.
No.
I was watching Bloomberg today. They had somebody on, excuse me, I didn't catch the guy's name, but he happened to use the term socialism more than twice. And the moderator of the program said, well, let's not use the term socialism. And I'm going, yeah, you shouldn't be using the term socialism because they were talking about government and corporations here in America. Yeah, don't call it socialism. That's fascism. Socialism is what the dirty laundry and the baggage that Obamanation drug into the White House. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of people in this country believe. It's called entitlement mentality. And many people in this country, because they were born American, they think they're entitled to somebody else's money. Oh, boy. At any rate. We got callers. Let's roll these. I don't want to leave anybody hanging today. I want to keep this moving along at a brisk and informative pace. Henry in Connecticut. Hello, Henry.
Yeah, a couple of things. A question for Chapman. What's going on now as far as with Germany and with the EU situation?
He's only going to answer if you call him Mr. Chapman.
Oh, yeah, Mr. Chapman.
There you
okay.
Go. All right.
Oh, my goodness. I think there's a lot of consternation going on in Germany. First of all, they didn't want to fund the whole thing in the first place, along with others. Secondly, they really want out of the Eurozone, and they have really since the beginning. I think the CDU has really hung themselves politically for even acceding to bail out Greece with others. And I think it's going to lead to higher unemployment, not right away, because exports will probably stay relatively strong because the euro is lower in value. But on the other hand, anything coming into the country is going to cost substantially more, probably 10 or 12%. And
now
so,
coming into what? Coming into Germany or some coming
into Germany?
Okay.
And so I think they're better off leaving. And I think how far is it away? It's hard to say, but if I had to guess, I'd say a year to a year and a half. It all depends on what happens there within the Union. You see what's going on in Spain now. We have 4 banks merging. We had another bank go under. The manager didn't want to leave, so the Bank of Spain had to throw them out. They had a hard time doing it because they were priests, and which I find unusual. And this thing is spreading. It's not getting better; it's getting worse. And no matter how much money they come up with, they're not going to be able to solve the problem. And in the United States, even the head of the Fed, Dudley in New York, said, consumer spending is picked up. The savings are probably around 3.4%. But the bottom line is we're really not recovering. And so we still have a credit crisis in America. Before the year is out, we're going to have 300 or more banks that have gone under, never mind how many emerged. Sometime next year, we could end up with a dozen banks, and that's the end of it. This is where they're headed with this thing.
All right, now
so
what
this
about...
is all interconnected, and they wanted it interconnected, and now that they got it that way, they can't disentangle themselves.
Right,
they
so
really made a mess
they would
out
go
of
down
this
with
thing.
it. Now, what about Norway, and also what about Switzerland? Because I'm trying to think of which,
Well, Norway has sold all their gold off, and their portfolio, I looked at about 2 weeks ago.
Now, what
It's
website?
a dog's breakfast, believe me.
Well, what website where somebody could look at Norway's portfolio?
It's interesting you ask. It was sent to me by a citizen of Norway, so
Okay.
I can't answer your question.
All right, now what
because I
about
don't know.
Switzerland?